characteristic of the first cause of the universe had to be supernatural in nature, exist outside of his creation, incredibly powerful. He created all that is known, eternal, exist outside of time and space, because time and space is just for me as a human being. But for the Creator, what time is? 1,000 years is like 1 day is like 1,000 years. Omnipresent, he created space and is not limited by it. Timeless and changeless, he created time. Immaterial, he transcends space. Personal, because the impersonal cannot create personality. Necessary, everything depends on him. Intelligent, because non-intelligence cannot create intelligence. Purposeful, because he deliberately created everything. So when you put all those together, you call him God, the Creator. So that's the cause argument. The cause argument. The good news is not every atheist that we are trying to help, you will have to go through all this explanation, because you will find some other reasons, trivial reasons, that made him not believe in God. His parents died. Where is God? It can be as simple as that. And we'll get to that later. So we mentioned, to begin with, 3 arguments. So the first one is the cause argument. The second one is the design argument. Design argument will be a little bit easier to follow than the cause argument. Another word for design argument, teleological argument. Telos is a Greek word that comes from end or purpose. When you look to the universe, and you see the outcome of this creation, where the fine-tuning of this universe will make you just lose your head, so to speak. The fine-tuning of many parameters in the universe for life to exist. So the design argument states that a designer must exist because the universe and living things show evidence of design. Example. Think about watch. Just the good old watch. Can a watch be just bing bang theory and here it is? Somebody has to make it. Can you imagine watch keeping time? Somebody has to make it. Design. Okay, this is just material thing. Think about your eye. Think about your eye. Amazing creation. Amazing when you think about it. And that's exactly what we call the incredible fine balance of what God created. It's so incredible and it's so fine. And that's what someone by the name of William Paley. William Paley made an analogy or comparison of a watch to the earth. If you came across a watch and examine it, you would not assume that its part has simply come together by chance. Just like the watch, the world is ordered and so couldn't have come together by chance. This means the world, like the watch, needs a designer. The designer or watchmaker is God. And added to that, he had a book published in 1802 by the name of Nature Theology, and he compares the watch and the eye. The watch is complex, had a purpose, tells the time. The eye is very complex, has a purpose, helps us see. The watch has a designer, a watchmaker. The eye has a designer, God. So that's the design argument. And also, Dr. Hugh Ross is an astrophysicist. He finds at least 35 constants in the universe had to be set perfectly for life to even have a chance to begin. And well, we're not bringing the 35 points, but we're bringing few of them. So he found that the universe had not expanded at precisely the right speed at its origin, life on Earth would not have been possible. Even Stephen Hawking has calculated that if the rate of the universe expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by the minutest, the universe would have collapsed into a fireball. So chance cannot do this. You know, things happen by chance. It cannot do this. Also, he found that if electrical or the gravitational, electromagnetic, or nuclear forces in our world were any stronger or weaker, life on Earth would not be possible. If Earth were any closer to the sun, it would be too hot for life to exist on Earth. And if it were farther away, it would be too cold. This cannot happen by chance. Even the moon. If the moon were any closer to the Earth, ocean tides would cover the highest mountains. You see the tides will go to the highest mountains. If the moon were any bigger or in the same place, and the tides would be strong, life on Earth would not be possible. The Earth is just large enough so that its gravity retains the atmosphere and just small enough not to keep too many harmful gases. So, you know, he came up with a list of 25 points that if it was not just so, life cannot exist. This cannot happen by chance. Even Stephen Hawking said it would be very difficult to explain why the universe should have begun just this way, except as an act of God intended to create being like us. Even the atheist came to that conclusion. Okay, much more about the design. Thinking about design, it takes brains. Think about your brain and think about computer. Who created the computer? The brain. Is the computer like a brain? Hardly ever, and we'll see. So the brain is a form of computer, but very, very sophisticated. Our goal, we can create computer intelligence through programming, just as people become intelligent by learning. But we see that the computer is not like the brain. The computer performs tasks without understanding what it's doing. It's programmed. So whatever you program, that's what you get. Does the brain understand what it's doing when it solves problems? I hope so. So that's the design argument. You know, the brain is more sophisticated than the most sophisticated computer. Look to the big airplanes that fell and all these people died. So, the earth is complicated. Complicated things are not random. It must have been designed. There must be a designer who is God. And St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, said, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." So we covered the cause argument, the design argument, and then the last one is the moral argument, and then we'll come to why people then don't believe in God. So what's the moral argument? There is universal sense of right and wrong. Universal. Culture, for example, recognizes honesty as a virtue, along with wisdom, courage, and justice. There are thought of an absolute principles, but absolute standards cannot exist without an absolute authority. Our absolute authority, that we call God, is the only true source of universal moral principle. Otherwise, all morality would be relative to cultural preference. You go to Nigeria, they will have different set of morals. You go to South Africa, will be the same. You go to Iceland, will be the same. You go to New Zealand, will be different. If there are no absolute, someone who say, okay, those are the morals, absolute authority. So, if there an objective set of moral laws, then where do these laws come from? There must be a lawgiver, a lawgiver. Therefore, the existence of objective morality is best explained by the existence of a law-giving God. And St. James said in his letter, there is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. There is only one lawgiver, who is the Creator, our Lord. Jean-Paul Sartre, and he just passed away not long ago, in 1980. He is a French, also atheistic philosopher. He said, if there is no God, there is no universal moral law. He admits this in the atheist dilemma. So it is a dilemma for him. And he is a philosopher. So he said, you know, if there is universal moral law, there must be somebody who put those law or lawmaker. And he said, everything is indeed permitted if God does not exist. Everything is permitted. And man is in consequence despair, for he cannot find anything to depend upon either within or outside himself. Nor, on the other hand, if God does not exist, are we provided with any values or commands that could legitimize our behavior. So if God does not exist, terms like morality, good and evil can only be defined by conflicting human opinions and personal feelings. So whose opinion or feelings would we choose to follow? If God does not exist as a foundation of morality, then anything goes. Anything goes. And look up this picture here. How our perception can lead to misunderstanding and conflict. You see, one is seeing those 4, and the other one is seeing them 3. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, but the other man, he said, no, they are 3. So moral, we can differ. I can say my opinion, you can say your opinion, and that's it. If there is no lawmaker or somebody who put the morals to begin with, everybody will have their own opinion. I mean, my goodness, look to ISIS, what they were doing, you know? And they believe in Allah. Of course, their Allah is not ours. C.S. Lewis is a British evangelist, and he passed away not too long ago in 1963. He said, all morals disagreement between persons imply an appeal to a standard of behavior to which all persons are subject. So there must exist a universal moral law, universal, all over the world. So the moral argument in conclusion, to admit that there is a God who created us would be to admit there is a God to whom we should be accountable. That is the reason most people refuse to consider, you know, because people don't want to be accountable to anybody, not even even God. The problem is not with the scarcity of or the unreliability of evidence. The real issue is the suppression of evidence in order to live with a dormant conscience. They don't want to live with their conscience. So it's much easier to say, well, you know, no, there is no God. And one would be foolish after seeing the insurmountable evidence for the existence of God. They continue to deny his existence. As mentioned in the Psalm, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. The fool. And in the book of Acts, and yet he did not leave himself. God did not leave himself without a witness, in that he did good and gave you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. So he doesn't leave himself without a witness all the time.